I'm Alan McCormack. I'm co-founder and creative director at Carvon. We make leather goods mainly, and we also work with wood and wool as well. Let's go through the agenda. So I'm going to quickly run through the equipment we have, the software we use, the file formats. Some of it's been covered by Tara, and what materials we use and the various applications that we use our equipment for. And then I'm going to have a look at the commercial aspects of using that equipment and getting your money's worth and obviously making a profit, and the various routes to market for your products that you're making, and also a little bit about sales and marketing. First, a quick video to explain who we are and what we do. So Gary and I were always close. We studied together, we lived together while we were in college. We helped each other out. Where I had weaknesses in certain subjects and Gary had in others, we found that by working together we were able to achieve a lot more. We both always talked about working together, starting our own business, working for ourselves, being our own bosses, and it just seemed like a natural progression. It wasn't about one particular product specifically, it was more about how we wanted to do business.
One of the main criteria for us was that we wanted to make something and produce something in Ireland. It's very important for us to use natural products, and we try and marry together traditional craft techniques with the latest in modern technology.
We manufacture everything in-house. It was definitely important to us to control quality right from start to finish. From travelling to meet our suppliers and seeing how our materials are made, to handling every stage of production, branding, photography, packaging, and a lot of our customers understand that, and that's why we get a lot of repeat business.
Hope for Carvon is that we can keep growing at the rate we're going. We have some part-time staff now, and we hope to have full-time staff by the end of the year. We made the decision that we'd try and grow the business organically, so if we can continue to grow the way we've grown it so far, the sales doubling every year, like that's basically where we want to be.
We've had a lot of help along the way, which has been great. The Craft Council of Ireland in particular have really been exceptional. They loved what we did, they advised us, they introduced us to retailers, foreign buyers, and where we see ourselves going in the future would be to maybe be more of an integral part of that craft industry in Ireland, and maybe pass on some of the information that we've learned along the way. So I thought that was easier than maybe explaining it. So we have 3 laser machines. We have twin 1200 by 900 80-watt machines, and that's one of them there. And also a spare kind of backup, which used to be our original. I suppose when you're heavily reliant on laser equipment, we do a lot of customization for corporate clients and also individual clients. So we were in a couple of situations where we had equipment breakdowns or parts we needed, so we ended up setting up essentially 2 identical systems where we had a duty standby situation, which also kind of gave us the ability to I suppose, increase our capacity for if we had a large quantity of one particular product we were making. I suppose we bought our lasers in the UK. We hadn't quite got the expertise to build our own, so we went with the UK supplier that actually sources them in Asia, and they kind of make some modifications to them in the UK. One of the most important things to us was having somebody at the other end of the phone. We had no experience with laser technology before 2011, so having somebody that can literally problem solve the little bits and pieces that go wrong with these things was essential to us and got us out of a lot of difficulty. I don't know if anybody has any laser equipment, but if you are buying, I suppose ventilation is seriously important. Your workshop can end up kind of full of smoke otherwise. So we found that by shortening the distance of the pipework, our machines are located directly at a wall. Ventilation goes straight out. That cutting down that sort of distance was kept everything running efficiently. And also the chilling system that you see here, the colder the water, the basically higher resolution you get from your engraving and cutting. So investing in, generally they come with a standard chiller that doesn't actually refrigerate, so it's worth the small amount extra to get a refrigeration unit that will actually keep the water at a constant temperature, just like that one. This is roughly our setup in the workshop. So we have 3 laser machines run off 2 desktop stations that feed from a central file storage system. It's basically everything within the box is within our office. So we have a bit of a bandwidth issue with our internet, so keeping all of our files internally in the office but still accessible in a cloud. I suppose we spend a lot of time on the road meeting clients and that, so being able to tie into the office, output a file for a client and have the guys in the workshop produce it was pretty important to us. It also meant that if anything happened with a particular machine, that we had kind of a standalone setup ready to go. So we also have our e-commerce site, which is where we do the majority of our business, synced in with that system as well. So it handles everything from order management to invoicing, and so yeah, right down to the individual customers' personalization requirements. They're entered into our system and everything's brought into the office and has a bit of a nice order system that keeps everything under control. We have I suppose the products start off being designed in the traditional format with our blue pens, and we then translate the work like Tara into Illustrator. We then output using the same formats, DXF for vectors and BMPs and JPEGs for kind of more complex art for engraving. I suppose the DXFs are vector based for cutting and the BMPs are for engraving. They're then outputted to a program called LaserCut 5.3, which our machines run on, and they basically take that information and output them in an ECP format for the machines. It probably looks complicated, but it's actually, once you have it set up, it's quite easy to get from one to the other. And there's plenty of tutorials online. And I suppose if anyone needs any tips and buys a machine, they can always contact us and ask for a few tips. The materials we use, primarily leather. We also use hardwoods that we get cut to a workable size, and walnut, oak and beech. Laser ply, I suppose, for signage and point of sale. There's also, we make stamps for some of the packaging components, like the little info cards. We just make our own rubber stamps with laser rubber. You kind of get A4 sheets, and it's quite handy not having to order that outside of the office. It's handy to be able to kind of make stuff relatively quickly. We generally don't work with plastics, but we have done some jobs for clients in acrylic, and there's a medical devices company we make polyurethane components for, and then we make also our own packaging sleeves out of paper and card. So the applications, I suppose, prototyping primarily, sorry, not primarily, prototyping to begin with, and I suppose a lot of our products are customized with logos and names. So we offer that service on an individual basis online to our customers, but I suppose where a lot of the money we make is from corporate work. So I suppose a large volume of the individual products we normally sell. I'll show you some examples in a minute. Cutting templates, I suppose the laser doesn't necessarily leave the required edge on some types of leather, so what we do is make wooden templates and just use them for tracing and cutting. Packaging, I'll show you some examples of that in a minute. Same with signage and POS, and there's also some client projects I can show you too. This is a project we just finished recently for Full Tilt Poker, and they wanted to give their high rollers a little thank you present, so that kept us busy for a few weeks. It was quite a large volume order of, I suppose, a similar notebook to what you see here. Just like a leather-bound journal. Yeah, I can pass it around in a minute. And Matheson, the legal firm, ordered a lot of Christmas gifts for their both their customers and their staff, which was great. So I suppose we use the laser for adding those logos. It essentially etches them in, and once you get the settings right, it's all quite clean. And I suppose a little bit of a rub with some oil afterwards tends to take away any excess char. Sorry if I'm blocking you there, will I? Again, these are just examples of similar products we've personalized. It's a MacBook sleeve. We've done some work recently for House, which is the new swanky club in town. They were giving their VIPs, they were going on a golf trip, so we've done lots of work for celebs, which was good for Twitter and that. And we engraved their little golf pencils on their scorecards as well. Our golf products have been going really well lately. It's kind of a gift box we do, so we use the laser to engrave the wooden lid, also the products, and the foam inserts. That's just regular artboard. We just build it up in layers. So there's a base layer, which is the exact shape of the box. And I suppose that's where the flexibility of the laser really comes into play. Being able to repeatedly cut an identical shape and the exact product slots to slot each product in, and then add little bits of, you know, made in Ireland and various client branding in some situations. It really enhances, it makes presentation of your product really easy, and I suppose one of the biggest compliments we get is on our packaging. The presentation of whatever product you're making is definitely hugely important. Again, it's another job we did for UPS, the Postal Service. Something similar. These are some examples of packaging we've done. So we make our own card sleeves out of recycled card. We have about 30 products, and when we went to source packaging for them, there was minimum order quantities for each type of packaging. So it became a bit of a nightmare trying to order that much stock and of all these different types, and then to introduce a new product. It was kind of back to the drawing board, back to the supplier, and there was a huge sort of time constraint in that. So we ended up buying sheets of recycled card in large quantities, and we now cut and make all our own packaging. So it's reduced. It means we can, when we have spare time, we can make it. We can set up, I suppose we have a large bed size on our equipment, so we can set up lots of packaging and press start and just go about our day. And after a couple of hours, you kind of have an awful lot of packaging done. That's a job we did for Louis Copeland. He got a gift of one of our iPad covers for Christmas, and basically had a €1,000 gift card for a custom-made suit that was basically a little plastic card that people were buying for their partners. It was getting thrown in a drawer and just didn't feel like a €1,000 gift. So we made a packaging system for him, and involving wooden boxes, and there was suit material incorporated in it, and yeah, it was a great success, and he bought a ton of them off us and also sent a sample over to his German equivalent called Hermer, and they ended up buying 2 pallets of the same thing off us, so it was a great job to get. We've, I suppose, a lot of having that ability to customize your packaging for one-off projects. It's great for getting publicity. I suppose there's a lot of special events that require, like that was for Richard Bruton at the opening of the LEO offices in Kildare. So he was presented with one of our notebooks, and it was a nice bit of press coverage for us. That's an example of one of the rubber stamps we use. So it was just literally reversing the image of the stamp, laser engraving it, and sticking on a block of wood, and it just allowed us to mark packaging and just tick the boxes as to what variation of the particular product was. And that's my business card that I cut out of a thin strip of walnut, which also it's quite effective when you're in a meeting. I have an example here actually. You can pass around, sort of thing. Actually, you can pass that around too. It's a little bit of engraving. We originally started out making wooden backs for iPhones and iPads. That was our first visit to showcase in the RDS with the Craft Council, and we won the overall award that year. We had a bog oak backs we were doing. We found a really good supplier for bog oak in Ireland, and they were able to cut really thin strips of bog oak for us. So we had some fun with that, and that's a case by Mazer, the Dublin-based graffiti artist. That's another shot of it there. We've done a lot of work with, I suppose, woodworkers and that have breadboards and various serving boards. We've done some stuff for Jemson and a lot of restaurants around town. So being able to, I suppose, when you've got the equipment, you've invested the money, and like all these extra projects that people require can be a really good way of, I suppose, making the machine pay for itself and helping pay the bills. That was I suppose my MacBook cover is just a thin sliver of wood that I made, which I suppose when placed over the Apple symbol kind of it was quite effective. But I also made some for the Craft Council, so out of bog oak, so they get a lot of compliments over them, and the little Ireland lights up as well, which is kind of cool. I suppose this was our stand at Showcase in the RDS last year. I suppose it was literally, the laser was involved in almost every piece of it. Like you're able to cut like quite thick, I think 12mm wood we used for signage. We were able to cut lettering. We were able to laser engrave panels for kind of a front desk, and we also engraved product information along the backboards. I suppose it brought the overall cost of our stand significantly down to years previous, and we had the whole thing knocked out in pretty much a weekend. So, like I suppose laser equipment, although it's great for production, it's just there's so many uses for packaging and promoting your brand that it's if you've got a workshop, I think it's almost an essential bit of kit to have in-house. And I suppose it's a great place here for trialing some of that technology, but I think there's so many uses, and they're quite cost effective. I think if you can afford it, it's a relatively small investment to get going, but they're just so useful. And I suppose if anyone has any large format stuff that their small machines can't cope with, you can always give us a call. We'd be glad to help. suppose there's just some close-ups of the same thing. We also did some CNC work for, these were signs again for the RDS. You can see the CNC gives a much deeper route, and but of course the craft council wanted the background black, so I ended up having to go around with a blowtorch into each of those crevices, which was a fun weekend. The neighbours didn't know what the hell I was up to. For our carpet in showcase, we actually bought 2 different colour carpets and laser cut our logo into each colour and then replaced them, so it kind of gave that effect there by the end of it, which was pretty cool, having a branded custom carpet. Like, that cost us, I think we got offcuts of carpet for close to nothing, and it took us about 5 minutes to make on the machine. So it got a lot of oohs and ahs on the day, and it just reinforces your brand and is also a bit of fun. I suppose that's pretty much what we do with our equipment. I'm going to, I suppose, look at the business side of things a little bit now. So what we found was, when we started, you're buying small quantities of materials to test them out, and it's when you're buying small quantities of materials, things are very expensive. So much so to where it's very difficult to make a profit. I suppose the price of a lot of what people are making is determined by the market rather than yourself specifically. We found that by using higher quality materials, we were able to kind of differentiate ourselves from people using, I suppose, easy to find standard materials. I suppose one of the most important things for us was, as soon as we could afford it, to deal direct with the material manufacturers. And the problem with that is they have fairly large and hefty minimum order quantities, so it's quite difficult as a small business starting off that's already invested in equipment and a premises and has all those lovely bills of a startup, to actually get to a point where you're buying your materials at such a volume that you're actually able to make a profit. So I suppose for people starting off, my advice would be, I suppose, allow some time to get to the point where you can get your costs down to a point where you can actually start making some money. It's a little bit disheartening sometimes, and I suppose particularly in Ireland, a lot of the places you buy material in Ireland, they've bought it from somebody else and they bought it from the manufacturer, so there's a lot of mouths to feed, and a lot of the good has been taken out of it by the time it gets to you. So we flew to Italy last year, and we now source our leather directly from the tanneries in Italy, and it literally made the cost of our materials, we saved about 60%, so it just immediately increased our profitability. And I suppose the same can be true for whatever materials you're using. Routes to market. So we have kind of a mix of where we sell our products. We initially started out selling them on our own website. I suppose the difference between the different routes to market, a lot of it comes down to margin. So I suppose on one end of the scale, you've direct selling, on the other you've retailers, and in the middle you've got kind of third-party sites that don't particularly want to take stock of your product, but will advertise them for you. And I suppose when you're starting off, trying to get traffic to your site is obviously fairly difficult. So it's, I suppose what we found, selling direct, so your RRPs kind of have to be fixed. So the price of a product has to remain constant across all of your different outlets. Retailers aren't happy if you're selling your product cheaper on your site. Obviously they feel like they have less of a chance to sell the product through their stores. So retailers basically look for 50% off your RRP. they call it 2.5x. You just divide the end price by 2.5, and that roughly gets you to where the retailers want to buy it. So what we found was the price of our products were determined by, I suppose, the market, and our main market is international and direct to customers online. So we couldn't adapt our prices to suit retailers and still make a profit. So we ended up selling to retail and really weren't making that great a margin out of it. And I suppose being over-reliant on retail, we found, was going to put us out of business fairly quickly. So we've constantly been trying to send more and more traffic to our own site, because you make the full margin. Like it's literally everything you make goes to you. We try, and I suppose the corporate side of our business, customizing our products in bulk for companies, is hugely profitable. They don't look for the same sort of discounts as retailers would, because they're generally one-off jobs, there's time constraints. So we find companies great to work with, and not just companies direct, but also there's plenty of PR and marketing companies around, I'm sure all the cities in Ireland, that have client bases that are always looking for something different. So having the ability to customize and tailor your products, or even brand your products for the corporate market, if it suits you, whatever products they are you have in mind, I'd highly recommend it. I suppose that's where a lot of the profit comes from our operation. Our own website's growing constantly. We have a lot of business coming in from the US and the Middle East at the moment, which is great. I suppose the amount of Irish people in Australia seem to be drawing some business from there too. And the UK is our second biggest market. We sell a lot of stuff in the UK, primarily through, not on the high street. They're basically a UK version of Etsy. They take a 25% cut of the RRP, which might sound a lot, but it's actually quite cheap. We get orders every day from that on the high street. The orders come in, they have a system that prints the delivery docket. We normally try to ship it in 24 hours, and 25% as a cost of sale isn't actually that bad. You're still left with 75%, compared to being left with 40 to 50% when you're selling to retail. And I suppose retail's good if you've got I always find if you're buying a product in and you know exactly where you stand with it, and you're able to add your margin and sell to retail, I think it's probably a lot more straightforward. But when you're making products and you've got a certain capacity, I suppose the price you're getting for that capacity really needs to be maximized. So I suppose a mix of all three sort of categories of routes to market, I think, would be most advisable. Etsy are great. Irish made gifts are kind of a Irish version of them. There's a few different types of them. There's a few startups now recently that offer that sort of Irish gifts abroad. Definitely worth checking out. And the more links back to your site and the more mentions of your brand and company online, it all helps essentially drive traffic back to your own website. A lot of people will see on third-party sites but prefer to buy direct, so they'll go to your website, find out more information. And so I suppose it's other websites are a really good source of driving traffic back to where you really want them, which is your main site. And the same can be said of retail. Like having visibility on the high street is always good, and again it drives back business. And also I suppose a lot of the retailers have press events and press releases, and again that all helps build towards the brand. So I suppose on the marketing side, having your website properly SEO'd with keywords, as I suppose the more content you have on your website, the more searchable it becomes. I don't know how anybody launches one product and tries to get traffic. It just can get lost in the in the sea of the internet. So yeah, getting lots of content, whether that content is blogging about what you're doing, the process you're doing, the equipment you're using. Like I suppose this is going to be on the Craft Council website with a link back to my website, and that will again help bring more people to where I want them. Videos are supposedly more effective at getting hits than normal photographs and text. So I'm not a fan of doing videos, but as you can see from the last one, it's a necessary evil. So, and I suppose I have some blog posts I'm working at the moment, which includes a Christmas gift guide where I'm going to mention sort of 10 other Irish makers that I'm familiar with their work, and helping, I suppose, recommending their products, but on our site. Like it's not necessarily a huge way of getting business, but it's a good way of building traffic. Social media, I suppose in the early days we couldn't really afford to pay for advertising. We tried a couple of different magazine advertisements, and it was a complete disaster. You're a little square in the back of the magazine, and it can be very disheartening after spending the guts of $1,000 to get into it. So that was a complete disaster for us, whereas we found that with social media, interacting with your customers and answering questions and giveaways and like and share competitions, and just being friendly online and trying to put across the personality of your business just can be completely priceless. And we ask our clients we have a little card we post with our products that says, please tag us on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and it's just anytime anybody tags us and shows their products, them smiling with it, it just has an immediate impact on sales. You can literally see sales coming in straight away. I don't know if any of you are into golf, but Francesco Molinari tweeted a picture of something we sent him, and like we had literally hundreds of sales out of it. It was fantastic. Paid advertising. So we don't generally do any paid advertising outside of social media anymore. I suppose what social media has really offered companies is the ability to pinpoint target who you want to get your products to. So if we have a golf promotion on our golf products, we can literally target people that live in Ireland, are college educated, for example, in a certain type of career, in a certain even income bracket, what technology they use, whether they're Mac or PC, whether they're on a mobile device. But like it's amazing how and who they follow. So for example, we can say, well, only people who follow the Irish Open or Rory McIlroy, we can target directly to those people, and the number of people you're targeting to gets lower and lower the more specific you get, but essentially you're really getting to the people that you want to get to. And I think you can have a campaign done in a couple of minutes, and although it might appear expensive per click, it's actually an amazing ability to really hone in on who you want to advertise to. So like, I'm not sure what products you guys are thinking of, but if you're building chairs, you can literally find people that have an interest in chairs, and you can actually pick people who have purchased products online within the last 3 months. Like you can choose people that are actively spending online. So I suppose our paid advertising would generally be social media related, because we found with other print media and other sort of banner ads online that it was a bit of a shotgun approach, and we found very little return from it. I suppose product placement, if you can get your products to the right people, it very much helps. Whether that's companies or individuals, when we first started off, we gave out 50 products. We looked up who had the 50 highest social media followings in Ireland, and we sent them all free products. And I suppose maybe 10% of them posted pictures of the products we sent them and a link back to our site. And that's kind of how we got the ball rolling. Like, it was quite an easy thing to do, a little handwritten note in with each product, and it was amazingly effective. I'll show you a couple of examples now in a second. And press releases. like I suppose we designed an iPhone 5 product before the iPhone 5 was released in Ireland, and the day before the phone was being released, there was a huge sort of press hullabaloo around it. So we sent out a press release to the Irish press saying that we were the first company with a Irish-made iPhone 5 accessory. Now, it was quite a simple product, but at the same time, the tagline enticed them to print some articles about us. And again, there was a nice return, and the press release cost us, I think, €16 to access a database of Irish press. A lot of it gets ignored, but it's only the couple of hits you need to get in the door. We've done interviews with the Sunday Independent and the Irish Times, and we've been on RT News and Nationwide and places like that. And like, I suppose the thing to remember about the press is they need content too. So it's about wrapping up content for them. When you're sending them information, it needs to be as close to a finished article as possible, so they can literally just add their opinion on top of it. They have all the photographs they need in the format they need them, and they have all the links they need, and they're kind of ready to go. Making it easy for them definitely increases the likelihood of getting traction with the press. And these are a couple of examples of our customers, what they've posted online, Instagram and Twitter and that, and it's just, it really is super effective. And Rory McIlroy, during his last 3 major wins, was using one of our leather yardage books, and that literally brought business in from all over the world for us. It was probably the biggest single event in for driving business to us. He had 3 wins, and he never left his hands really. So it was on the cover of magazines and all over the TV. We were getting phone calls from the 4 corners of the world. It was brilliant.
How much did you pay for that?
Yeah, nothing actually. Yeah, so we made some phone calls, and we got kind of back passes to Wentworth, which he was doing a competition before the majors, and we got onto the practice area, and we had made I suppose about a dozen products for a dozen players, and but we weren't sure whether he was going to use it or not, and then it was all over the place. So we were delighted. So yeah, we'd very little communication with them on it, and it was a bit of a shot in the dark, but talk about paying off. It was brilliant.
Did you just leave it for him?
No, we got to the practice area, so we were able to hand stuff to the players. Yeah. So once his bodyguard figured out that what we were doing, we were shut down fairly quickly, and then we didn't hear anything for a while, and then it just started showing up on TV. So it was great, and we had his name and logo, and he's a Man United fan. We put some of that on the inside and stuff. So we tried to make it as enticing as possible, and I suppose that's the thing about personalization. If you can integrate some form of personalization into what you're doing, whether it's a chair or a table or a piece of fabric, or like, I suppose when we started off, we'd done very little personalization, and now I'd say about 85% of everything that leaves the workshop has some form of personalization on it, and that's where I think laser technology is just amazing. What we tried to do was simplify the process of ordering. What we found was we had a lot of emails from people saying, well, how do I go about it? I don't know much about designing artwork. So what we did was we set out sort of 5 fonts that were numbered. Just tell us what font you want, where you want it, and we do names and messages and logos and stuff like that. So I have a lot of experience working with Illustrator, so we get all sorts of horrible file formats that I just kind of have to try and do my best with. So I end up most of the time going to websites and looking for better versions of logos and that. But the odd time you get somebody who hands you a nice clean file, but it's well worth looking into if your business allows for some form of personalization. it increases the sort of word of mouth. Where did you get that? Or look at this. People tend to show it off more if it's personalised. And I suppose a lot of our products would, like wallets and card holders and meeting folders and stuff like that, companies pull them out as much as possible and trying to show off their own brand, but they're inadvertently, I suppose, showing off our brand at the same time. So we never let anything leave our workshop without some form of who made it on it. We don't do white label products. We've had people contact us that want us to make our products with their branding for them to kind of claim they made it themselves, but we don't do that. But what we have made products for other people where I suppose we wouldn't sell them ourselves. We'd just make them and let them sell them themselves. So yeah, that was pretty much that. And that's more or less it. If you have any questions.